Hey everyone, today I want to show you guys my Whirlwind Bleed Barbarian. This build has been so much fun for me and it's probably one of the best builds right now for Barbarian. I wanted to start off with showcasing some gameplay so you can actually see for yourselves how powerful this build actually is. Now this is a level 69 Nightmare Dungeon and I'm level 84 on my Barb, so monsters are approximately 40 levels above me, but we are going to be absolutely blasting. Now this is a triple shout Whirlwind Barbarian that uses Lunging Strike to maintain Berserking and Rupture to deal insane single target damage. We're going to be taking advantage of the synergy between the Barber Heart and the aspect of Berserk Ripping. Basically, the way Berserk Ripping works is whenever we do direct damage while we are Berserking, we inflict 60% of the base damage that we did as bleeding over 5 seconds. Now, the reason this will be 60% for us and not 30 is because we're going to be using this aspect on our two-handed weapon, so we're going to be getting the ×2 multiplier. Now, the catch here is that the Barber Heart explosion is actually considered one instance of damage, and so it works with the Berserk Ripping aspect. To make things very simple, anytime we accumulate damage with our Barber and it then explodes, all the damage we accumulated will then also apply an additional 60% of all that damage as bleeding because of our Berserk Ripping aspect. And we are going to be using Rupture also to immediately explode all of that bleeding damage instead of it taking 5 seconds. And this will allow us to explode single target enemies and absolutely obliterate everything. You guys will see this very soon when we actually go and fight the boss over here. And actually, let's actually see this engagement so you guys can see how you want to play this. So basically, you're going to want to use all of your shouts, and obviously we're going to spin. Now, we got very unlucky here, actually, because we didn't proc our Barber here, and then our Berserking actually ended, so we couldn't actually use our Rupture over here. But you guys are going to see in a second when we actually get our shouts back up that we basically just one-tap this boss and we annihilate him. So now that we get our shouts back up, we're going to use our shouts. We're going to spin. We're going to wait for the Barber to proc. And now it procs, and we instantly use Rupture, and we basically just annihilate the boss. So yeah, this build is super powerful. Now that we've seen some gameplay, let's jump into the build. I've actually created a very informative build planner for you guys. It's going to be linked in the description down below, so you will have access to this source. But I want to go over it together, and let's start off with the skill tree. So for the basic skills, you want to start off and take Lunging Strike. The reason why is Combat Lunging Strike over here is going to help us maintain Berserking. Berserking is very important for this build because we need to be Berserking in order to utilize the Berserk Ripping aspect, which is the enabler of basically all of our damage. So anything that can grant us Berserking in this build is going to be very valuable. For our core skills, you want to max out Whirlwind, and you're going to take Furious Whirlwind over here, which will make Whirlwind inflict 40% of its base damage as bleeding damage, as long as we're using a slashing weapon. We're going to be using swords in this build, which are slashing weapons, so this basically just makes us deal more bleeding damage, which is very good for this build. For the defensive skills, you want to take 1 point into Rallying Cry. The reason why we are not maxing this out like most Barbarian builds is we are not going to be using the Unbridled Rage key passive, so we are not going to be having Fury issues, and there's no reason to max this out. 1 point should be perfectly fine. And you want to take Tactical Rallying Cry over here, which will increase our resource generation and give us Fury every time we use the Rallying Cry. You want to max out Imposing Presence, which will increase our maximum life. And we're going to max out Challenging Shout, which will give us a big amount of damage reduction. And also Tactical Challenging Shout will give us Fury every time we take damage. For the brawling skills over here, you want to take 1 point into Warcry and move your way into Mighty Warcry. This will grant us Fortify, which is going to be very good in order to help us utilize the counter-offensive passive that we will be taking in a second. And you also want to max out all of your shout passives. Booming Voice will increase the duration of our shouts. Guttural Yell will make us take less damage, and Raid Leader will give us heals as long as we have shouts active. You want to max out Aggressive Resistance, which will give us damage reduction while we are Berserking, and we're also going to take 2 points into Prolific Fury, which will give us Fury generation while we are Berserking. You also want to max out Swiftness, which will increase our movement speed, which is also always very, very nice. For the weapon mastery skills, you want to max out Pit Fighter. This will make us deal more damage to close enemies and take less damage from distant enemies. You want to take 1 point into Hamstring, which will help us apply slows to enemies who are bleeding, which is all of the enemies as long as they're healthy. And you also want to take 1 point into Thick Skin so you can max out counter-offensive and defensive stance. Counter-offensive will increase our damage as long as we have Fortify for more than 50% of our max HP. Because we're going to be using the Warbringer legendary node on our Paragon board, and we also use the Numbing Wrath aspect on our gear, we should always have very high Fortify, so this should basically be applied all of the time. And you also want to take Defensive Stance, which will increase our damage reduction while we are fortified. For the ultimate skills, we're actually not going to take anything here from the skills, but you want to max out the Tempered Fury passive, which will increase our maximum fury by 9. The reason why you want to take this is we are going to be using the Malignant sword, the unique sword, which will makes us do more damage the higher fury that we have. So this is going to be very good for our damage. For the key passive, you're going to be taking Gushing Wounds. Basically, every time we cause an enemy to bleed, which is all the enemies that we are dealing damage to, because we're going to be using the two-handed sword expertise. So all the damage that we're doing, that we are going to be doing, is going to be applying bleed. So every time that we apply bleed, now we have we have a chance equal to the critical strike chance that we have to increase the bleed amount by 115% of our critical strike damage. So to make things very simple, we attack enemies, they become inflicted with bleed, and now we have a chance to deal even more bleed damage. So this is going to be very good for the build. Now that we kind of understand the skill tree, we can move into the gear so you can see how everything kind of connects. So let's quickly go over the gear that you're going to want to be using for this build. So in terms of your helmet, you're going to want to be using the Relentless Berserker aspect. What this basically does is every time we deal damage with a core skill, we have a 40% chance on lucky hit to extend the duration of berserking by 2 seconds. If the attack was a critical strike, this will double the effect. This is going to be very good for maintaining berserking at all times, so we can utilize the berserk ripping aspect, which is the enabler of our entire build. For the chest piece, you're gonna want to be using the Numbing Wrath aspect. This will help us maintain high fortify at all times, so we can utilize the counter offensive passive that will make us deal even more damage. What this basically does is every time that we generate fury above maximum fury, we gain 30 fortify for each point of fury. So this is going to be very good for maintaining high fortify. For your glove, you're going to want to be using the Grasping Whirlwind aspect. This basically makes Whirlwind pull enemies towards us every couple of seconds. This is going to be very good for exploding rooms of elites or rooms of a lot of mobs. Every once in a while, the Whirlwind will pull everyone towards you and allow you to clean enemies even faster. For your pants, you're going to want to use the Disobedience aspect. This is just the best defensive aspect in the game. This will make us gain increased armor every time that we deal damage. So this is very good for defensive purposes. For your boots, you're going to want to use the Ghostwalker aspect. This grants free movement and increased movement speed every time we are unstoppable and for 4 seconds after. Rallying Cry will grant us unstoppable, so this is just going to be very good for more movement speed and the ability to walk through enemies. So if you're ever stuck in the middle of a pack and you need to kind of get away, you can use Rallying Cry. That should allow you to move freely through enemies without getting stuck. For your two-handed bludgeon weapon, you're going to want to be using the Berserk Ripping aspect. This is the most important aspect on the build, and you want to put it on a two-handed weapon to enjoy the 2.0 multiplier. So what this basically does is every time we deal direct damage while we are berserking, so this only works while you are berserking, we inflict 60% of our base damage as bleeding damage, so this is very good for enhancing our bleeding damage, and you have to put this on a two-handed weapon. For your first one-handed weapon, you're going to want to be using Malignant, the unique sword. This will increase our damage for every point of fury that we have, and we are going to be increasing our maximum fury through our gear and through our Paragon Board by a very large amount. So this is going to be increasing our damage by a huge amount. What is important to note is that this only works if the skills that you are using actually use this sword. So it's very important to make sure that your Whirlwind is set to your dual-handed weapons and not to your two-handed weapons, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So as you guys can see, I'm on my Barbarian here, and I'm going to show you guys how to set up your Whirlwind to be on your dual-wielded weapons and not on your two-handed weapons. So you're going to want to be pressing S if you're using a keyboard. This will open your skills over here. Maybe you guys have this set to a different hotkey, but whatever it is, you want to open this tab over here. And then you're going to take your mouse and you're going to move it over the Whirlwind skill. And as you guys can see, I'm actually set up on my dual-wield weapon. But the way you can kind of change between the different weapons is you're going to press down on your scroll wheel. So as you guys see, every time I press down on my scroll wheel, it will move between the different weapons. So now it's on my slashing weapon, now it's on my bludgeon weapon, and now it's on my dual wield weapon. And you really want to make sure that Whirlwind is on your dual wield weapon, or the entire Malignant buff is not going to work for you. So for your second one-handed weapon, you're going to want to be using the Edgemaster aspect. This will increase our damage the more fury that we have, up to 20%. This is also a very good damage buff. For your second two-handed weapon, you're going to want to be using the Whirlwind, the Dire Whirlwind aspect. This will increase our critical strike chance with Whirlwind for each second that it is channeled, up to 48% if you use this on a two-handed weapon. The reason this is very, very good and you want to use it on your two-handed weapon is the higher critical chance that we have, the faster we are going to be proccing the Barber Heart and the more damage we're going to be doing. So you want to put this on a two-handed weapon. For your amulet, you're going to want to be using the Limitless Rage aspect. You want to put this on your amulet to enjoy the 1.5 multiplier. This will make us deal more damage the more fury that we have above maximum fury. So every point of fury that we generate above maximum fury will increase our damage by up to 45%. So this once again is a very big damage buff. You want to put this on your amulet. For your first ring, you're going to want to be using the Bold Chieftain aspect. This will reduce the cooldown of our shout skills for every enemy that is nearby up to 6 seconds. So if you use a shout for every enemy that is nearby you, your shout will be reduced in cooldown by up to 6 seconds. So this is very good for reducing the cooldown of our shouts. And for your second and last ring, you want to be using the Echoing Fury aspect. This will increase our fury generation every time that we have a shout active. So this is very good for maintaining high fury. In terms of gems and hearts that you want to be putting on your gear, so for all of the defensive gear that you have, that means helmet, chest piece, and pants, you want to be socketing them with sapphires. This will increase your damage reduction while we are fortified. So this is going to be very good for survivability. And all of your weapons, you want to socket with emeralds, which will increase our critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. In terms of the hearts that you want to use, you're going to want to be using the Barber heart, of course. This is going to be very good for our damage output. Every time that we critical strike an enemy, it stops taking damage for 2 seconds. Instead of that, it accumulates all of the damage that it has been taking for those 2 seconds, and it amplifies it, and then it explodes and deals insane damage in an AoE. So this is a very good heart to have. And the other hearts that you want to use are Caged Heart of Revenge. This is just a 20% damage reduction buff, so it's very good for survivability. And you also want to be using the Caged Heart of Dark Dance. This will make, once in a while, every time that we use Whirlwind, it will be costing hard health instead of fury. So this is going to be very good for maintaining high fury, because every once in a while, Whirlwind will not cost us fury. So these are kind of the hearts that you want to use. And as mentioned before, the expertise that you want to use is the two-handed sword expertise, which will make us deal bleeding damage every time that we deal damage to enemies. So let's quickly talk about the Paragon board. I don't want to dive too deep here because that could take a very long time. I just want to generally speak about what I think you should look out for. Anyone who wants to kind of see exactly what I did and follow step by step, you're going to have the build planner in the description below, and you are going to be able to do that. So I actually have Territorial here, but once you start off, you're going to have Exploit here. But as you kind of move along, and once you open your 5th board, which has more dexterity available, you're going to want to put Exploit over here, and then you're going to move Territorial to your starting board. So I actually have Territorial over here right now, but if you actually start off and this is your 4th board ever, and you're just level 50, you're going to want to put Exploit here. So first board, of course, Exploit or Territorial, it doesn't really matter. You're going to swap them out later. And then you're going to move up here into the Weapon Master board, and you're just going to kind of swip very quickly over here and just pick up Martial and move on to reduce the cooldown of your shouts. So nothing really interesting in this board, just a quick pass through to take Martial. And then you're going to want to move to your Warbringer board. Over here, you're going to want to put Wrath. You're going to want to put Wrath, which will be increasing our critical strike damage. And this will also give us Fury every time we critical strike. And you're also going to want to take Warbringer over here, which will help us maintain high Fortify at all times. So we can use our counter-offensive passive. And also you want to take all of the max Fury nodes over here and also over here to increase our maximum Fury so we can deal more damage with our Ramaladni. And then you're going to kind of move over here to the Decimator board. You're going to take Disembowel. This will help us reduce the cooldown on our shouts as well. Every time we kill an enemy who is bleeding, we have a 10% chance to reset our cooldowns that are not ultimate skills by 1 second. So this is good for resetting our shouts. And then you're going to move into the Bonebreaker board over here. This is where you're going to want to put Exploit. Now you're going to move Exploit from your starter board to here. And you're going to move Territorial to your first board. And then you're going to move up here to the Blood Rage board. You're going to take Undaunted, and you're also, this will increase our damage while we are fortified, and this will also make us take less damage while we are fortified. And you're also going to want to take the Blood Rage Legendary Node. This will help us maintain Berserking at all times. While we kill enemies who are bleeding, we have a 10% chance to grant ourselves Berserking for 5 seconds. So this is going to be very good for making sure that we are always Berserking. So that's basically a very quick review of the boards. If you want to actually see what I did step by step, you will have that in the description down below. And thank you for watching.